Would that what would you use another part of your body to touch hand? No, you touch hands together. So when I say butt touch the
so
butt.
Would you call that a butt shake?
No, a butt shake would be you would have to get one cheek in between the other person's cheek so that
obviously
just aggressively
just spread the cheeks and let them fit together like a puzzle.
Then you aggressively twerk.
The mechanics. Just imagine trying to make that work out in public. It's like, hello there, friend.
It's basically. Greetings, mortals, and welcome to another episode of your favorite podcast show, the Super Agile Bros. I am your sitting host, Steve, or as me mama likes to call me, Steve. And with me are my two co-hosts. First, Kyle, who exists. Hello, Kyle.
I exist. I am here. And so do our supernatural listeners. Said just our mortals. We know you're out there, and we acknowledge you.
If anyone is here in the room, move the table.
Don't do that. I'm good.
Make your presence known.
Don't do that. I will 100%.
Who did that?
I will 100% burn this whole house down and move out at the same time. I'm good.
And the sultry and slightly panicked voice you just heard was our very own Bradston. Hello, Bradston.
Hey, what's up? And I just want to correct, something that was said earlier. I am not sitting. I think that's what I heard you say. I am standing.
Yes.
Because
that was a bait, and you fell for it.
Greatness. I stand above my competition, a.k.a. Kyle and Steve.
I'm standing, too.
Actually, I'm the only one who's sitting. It's because I have weak ankles.
He says he's standing now after I call it out. I don't believe it.
Oh, speaking of standing, who's that standing next to you, Brad?
I'm not that. Even if look, let me tell you how ghosts work
Brad,
in my life.
Is there someone behind you?
I hear some breathing.
Let me tell you
in
this.
The background.
If there is a ghost in my house, and I'll tell this to the ghost right now if they're listening.
There are.
I will not acknowledge your presence. I will never look at you. I will never. Maybe it'll make you stronger. Maybe it'll make you more powerful. Maybe you're the Babadook. But let me tell you something. You don't exist to me. And one day you'll just see me like packing some stuff up, and then I'll leave, and you'll be waiting as a ghost. Like, where did he go? Because I moved out and you didn't know. Like it'll be so slick. Like you're not gonna haunt me.
Ghost the cold shoulder.
Exactly. Not gonna get a forwarding address or nothing. So
I think that actually was the plot of a book I read when I was younger.
What was the book?
Yeah, I forget what it was called. But it was about a Bogart or however it is pronounced.
A booger.
No, you silly Billy.
Oh, excuse me.
Basically, it's like a fun poltergeist, or at least this one was. It lived in like a castle in Scotland or something, and it lived basically with this family. And it never really tormented them. It liked to basically play slight jokes on it. And they kind of knew it was there. And so it was like Casper the Friendly Ghost, kind of. But then, over the decades and centuries, the family kind of changes. And eventually, no one lives in the castle and it lives by itself. And it's like sad. And then a new modern hip family comes in. It actually is very much like Casper the Friendly Ghost.
I think you're just describing Casper.
Maybe Casper was based on this age-old tale of a lonely ghost.
They used to be stealing back then.
This man was watching like Disney Channel. Like, I remember I read this deep book. It was so deep. It was about these two kids. They were twins.
No,
and they lived in a hotel.
Definitely was a book I read. It was completely different from Casper.
It was so deep,
Because what happens is that family comes and then they move back to like, the UK or wherever, the city, and it hides in the drawer of of some furniture. And it, basically, most of the book, it ends up haunting their new home. And at one point it haunts or possesses like a computer game that one of the kids is writing, and
so it's almost like the Brave Little Toaster. Like if
is
like
that what happened in the Brave Little Toaster?
Yeah, you just mixing up all kinds.
They
of
all used to be alive.
Did the Brave Little Toaster possess a computer and say, "Take me home"?
I mean, he's clearly a possessed toaster. I mean, clearly it's a spirit.
Gosh, that's a question, isn't it? Like, what's the explanation? Are they all possessed by ghosts or
that's
demons?
what I'm saying. It's probably people who died in the cabin
or angels
back in the day, and then they all, so it's just ghosts.
So it's like a Beauty and the Beast situation with the furniture, except they're not just people who became furniture; they're people who died and became furniture.
And they seem pretty content.
Yeah, and you could say that in this world, all quote unquote inanimate objects are actually just reincarnated people. because everywhere they go, you run into these characters, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, and then they age and die again in that show.
Exactly.
And what happens to them the second cycle of reincarnation?
You mean, I guess the rules would be if they lived a better life, they would like move up to the next. So maybe they'd be human.
Oh, so normal reincarnation karma rules.
So they lived a bad life prior. So this is probably a better one. Hopefully.
They had evil inanimate objects. So some people, yeah.
Speaking of living a bad life, I've been watching The Good Place. And I have to say, I definitely was sleeping on the show. The show's hilarious and somewhat thought-provoking.
Yeah. Shailene, she was watching it, and I'd pop in, periodically. She gave me a rundown of what's going on. Yeah, it's pretty. I want to say it's kind of deep, but it's definitely a comedy. It has these thoughts that make you think about things.
It's smarter than I expected.
Yeah.
There's some moments where I'm like, I guess they're just going to ignore like this little, you just kind of learn to expect that shows aren't going to catch every little nuance of a subject matter. But then, surprise, it would actually be a twist for later. Ooh. They did know about that nuance.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it's pretty intriguing. It's pretty intriguing.
Anyway, welcome to Super Agile Bros. And today we are going to be talking about the overabundance ? Of video games. Does that make sense? Want me to explain it more?
The overabundance ? Hold on. He said,
do you think consider the following. All right, reading rainbow style. Right. Consider the following. Are there too many video games? And if so, why?
I'm going to defer to LeVar Burton.
Reading rainbow.
I wish I was LeVar Burton.
Don't we all wish we were LeVar Burton? He's literally the coolest, man.
He really is. Like, what a stud.
Like, literally, he is goals. Like, I want to be him. I want to age as gracefully as him. I want to be as relevant as he is still. I just want to be him. So,
I think his... Never mind. I'm not going to make that joke. He was great in Star Trek. I really enjoyed him.
Yeah, he had cool sunglasses.
That man couldn't see.
He actually had there's like a Manchurian Candidate type episode where he's like hypnotized and people are sending him signals to assassinate leaders and stuff through his visor.
Of course.
Yeah. It was great. Sucks. Anyway, aren't there too many games? What do you guys think?
There are quite a lot. I have too many in my backlog. I'll tell you
There's so many games.
There was a point where I was getting games on the Humble monthly thing because it was such a good deal. Like, you'd get hundreds of games in a year, and you could play them all on Steam. And a lot of them were, ones that came out maybe a month or two before, so full price games. But it was a subscription that was like maybe $10 a month, and you get like $80 to $200 worth of games. And I still have all those games like not even downloaded. On top of the games that I haven't played that I actually like physically bought. And then that doesn't take into account all the games that actually exist. Those are just the ones that I'm aware of.
Hold on a second. So digital games I can understand. But how often do you buy a physical game and then just don't play it?
Probably once a year.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not too much, I guess. Can you name some of the games you've neglected?
Yeah, so was that this year or earlier last year? I bought the 35th anniversary Super Mario, where it had the three or four of them in there.
Ooh, okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah, I bought that, never played it. Some things I buy and
that's three games that you bought and didn't play.
True. Yeah, it was a bundle.
So I think this question is, are there too many games? There's like two parts to this. So number one, I want to firmly put blame on one place or one thing for this dilemma. And I blame Steam. Particularly,
bruh.
I blame...
I thought you were about to say Steve. I really thought you were doing
No. It's all your fault. That would just be like my speech impediment if I blamed you. But
very well.
I blame Steam, particularly the Steam Summer Sale, because I think what happened with the Steam Summer Sale is it started to create this like weird game economy where like games were just like, man, 50 cents, $1. Like, you just boom, boom, boom. It didn't even matter. You just bought whatever was out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, and this is me once again, this is probably not true. This is just me saying what I believe. I think it created this idea that like games were just like something you could just throw out there and it would just, somebody's going to buy it if it's on sale, you know? So I think more and more people started creating these games and it was just like, they were just throwing it out there and just hoping people would buy it, get 50 cents on it, put it on sale, and like just created this system, this economy, this digital game economy. And I think that fed into this lie that you could become an indie dev with no skill. And that created more games. And so I think that's the first part. And also I want to add in, it's just accessibility to create games, right? Like there's so much more. But then I think there's too many games because simultaneously we now have a history of games. So games that existed in the past are getting re-released, remastered, repackaged, you know what I'm saying? Resold. And we love those games. So we're going out of our way to buy them, to play them, to see them. And there's just too much now from the current games, coming games, and past.
You see, regarding your first point about Steam sales, I would actually challenge that. I think you're correct to some extent, but I think even worse than Steam sales worse than Steam sales, mobile game stores, and similarly the really cheap eShop games, especially on the Nintendo Switch. Actually, I don't know. There's probably cheap eShop game or cheap shovelware games on every storefront now, but
PlayStation's got them now.
PlayStation's got them? Okay, I can believe it. I know Xbox got them. But yeah, like Nintendo is just swarming with cheap games. And so is, every mobile app store. And I think the abundance and the expectation and the popularity of these cheap games also drives the low effort shovelware expansion of games.
Well, I would just say that I don't, maybe this is a discussion for another time, but I just don't count mobile games in this because I just feel like mobile games are just in their own world. I kind of want to I think in my mind, when I think of games that I think of PC and console,
So not shovelware or not mobile shovelware? Because a lot of people are porting their mobile games to PC and other consoles.
I mean, I think just mobile games in general. I mean, I think a port, if it makes it to a console, that's in consideration. But for me, I don't really go, oh man, I'm not going to play this mobile game, because I'm not going to play this game on my PS5 because of this game on my mobile phone. You know what I'm saying? I play them very, very differently. I'm playing a random game right now on my phone, but it has no impact on my normal gaming. You know what I'm saying?
So I take it we're all in agreement that if you consider the vast ocean of low effort 50-cent games, asset flips. Oh, something else to consider is that it's so easy to make games now because the tools to make them are becoming more powerful and more accessible and cheaper. So more people are doing it. But anyway, I think we all agreed that there's way too many of those. But let's ignore them. Let's ignore all the low effort $1, $2, $5 games. Even let's say all good games and all AAA, AA, even indie games, games that actually were put effort as some sort of labor of love or some sort of requirement for massive cash, right?
Games with marketing budgets.
Games with marketing budget. That's a great delineation. Okay. Are there too many of those?
I think as far as time is concerned, yes, because a lot of the games that are being built that fit that criteria, a lot of long games are being made. And so maybe to just play a game, I mean, if you only want to play it for a couple hours maybe, but to finish a game now and to really fully experience a game, I think, there's more being made. Because I remember when I had Nintendo 64 and games just rolled out slower. It seemed like the games with marketing budgets rolled out slower.
Sure.
And so I'd have time to finish one before another one came. If all you're doing is playing games, then I can see how you can get through a couple. But I mean, there's probably at least I would have to estimate like 5 big games every month. It seems like.
You know, I think I want to change how I phrase this question and see what you guys think about this. Because Kyle, you made a point that, I think is really, really important, that games now, there's not just more games, right? I think the industry has grown. There's more people to make games for. There's people who like strategy games and simulator games and, FPS, whatever, right? So the industry's grown. So that makes sense to me that there's more games. And that's not necessarily the problem. But I think what you said, Kyle, I think there's too much games. Like, I remember being able to play a game in like a weekend and like get a good experience and get the full, unless it was like an RPG, like, an old school turn-based RPG, those like, 50, 60, 70 hours, or like really, really high level AAA games, But like most games, I felt like, I could get my experience in a weekend. I could go to Blockbuster, rent the game, and then I could return it on Monday, But I just feel like I can't think of a game that I could do that with, Like games are now like services. Think about Fortnite or Apex or Minecraft or anything, They just go on forever. So you got to deal with those kind of games. And you got to think about games like what we've been recently playing, God of War. Like that game is massive. Like any way you put it, it is huge. And then you got God of War, you got Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon Forbidden West, you got everything, And I just feel like even if the titles were to reduce by half, I still think there's too much game out there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's an interesting, because it makes sense because studios are becoming bigger. And there's more of, I think, an expectation like, all right, I want to get as much game as possible for my money. And you want to blow away the competition, right? You want to say, oh, my game has more depth and more breadth than these other games. I can see that.
Yeah, the bar is continuously being raised. And like you said, that expectancy, if a game is great and a 15-hour experience, it still gets kind of reprimanded for being so short. It's like, oh, it was great, but I want more. It's like,
I wish it was longer. Yeah.
It's like the 40 hours used to be reserved for games like the RPGs or ones that had a lot of replayability, but now it's standard. Like they will pad a game if they need to, just to reach that 40-hour mark.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame.
Yeah, like even games that I think are like don't deserve that much time. Like I haven't been playing it. I put it down because of this exact problem with Mario and Rabbids. Like overall, I like the game. Like I enjoy the mechanics. I like how it's been done. But I think my biggest problem is that they've like added all this stuff that I don't want to deal with. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think you have maybe had the same experience, Kyle, but there's so much of this like walking around and finding these coins that don't matter and doing these stupid little puzzles just so I can get another weapon or something like that. I'm like, let me just play the main core game. And if they just let me play the battles, for those who aren't familiar with Mario and Rabbids, it's just like a turn-based strategy game. If they just let me play the battles, I think honestly, the game would have been like maybe 10 hours long, right?
Yeah.
But it felt like it was going to be 40 hours long because of all this stuff that like it just feels like padding. Like they're trying to hit that 40-hour mark or 30 or 20 or something. And I don't know, like in some cases I get it, like a big game, like say The Witcher 3 or something like that. That game is huge. And those to me are like full course meal games. But I think like any other game should just be, let me play the game. Like, old school, like when you played Need for Speed or, whatever, it was like you played the game and you got bonuses and you put it down, like there's no storylines. It was just the game. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I I was thinking maybe I want to talk more about this later, but I was wondering what we spoke in a previous episode about perfect games, but I wonder what you guys feel like the perfect game length is. Or if there is one, or maybe there's a game that stands out to you as like, oh, this game was the perfect length based on how much I liked playing it and when it finished. Like, what do you guys think about that?
So I think that each genre of game kind of lends itself to a different length. And then even within that, whatever the gameplay loop is, you know, and then if it's a solo or multiplayer experience, like all these different variables, I don't think there's one perfect length for games. And then how often you play games, who you play games with, all those subjective things.
Sure, yeah.
But for
you,
for me, I would say that probably around the 20 to 25 hour mark, I feel like most experiences get their point across and that they're not really doing anything new once you get around there. And so at least I want to know that the plane is coming down when I reach that point.
Got it.
And so I think that varies depending on the game too. But for me, I think it makes a big difference to play a game and it feel like it's going to end and it doesn't versus, you know, I guess the two opposites, which is ending way too soon and getting that weird feeling, or the ending never coming and you feel like you've wasted your time, even if you were enjoying the game, just because now the game or the developers, whoever you want to blame, aren't really, you know, taking care of your time.
Yeah, I think you made a great point, Kyle, about the whole idea of like different genres lend to different lengths, and I think I'm just gonna assume that this is based on like probably like more linear experiences, maybe, because I feel like it changes for me depending, but like if it's a linear game, I think the perfect game length is whatever. Let's see, Zelda Ocarina of Time's length was, or Twilight Princess.
Okay.
Because to me, those games, you know, maybe they're 30 to 40 hours, but I always felt like I was progressing towards something. Like the hours felt meaningful. You know what? I don't even think I care about the time, like per se. I just care that it's meaningful time. You know, like that. I'm not just doing like, you know, some games and we all play it where you're like on the main storyline and you need to get some medallion to place in a wall to open a door, and you have the medallion, you go to the door, and all of a sudden a big hawk flies and grabs the medallion out your
right.
arm, and then you got to go chase it down. Like to me, like that's just like you know, like let me just continue forward, like
yeah.
You know, and maybe that's a narrative thing, but it also just feels like the same with the gameplay. Like it feels like Kyle, you're saying, like I don't want to do the same thing over and over. I want to continue. Like that's why I think Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess are great examples, because I could see my inventory getting more and more new, cool, and interesting weapons. And once my inventory was full, I knew my game was about to end. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Oh yeah, that is a good feeling.
Yeah. So I think a lot of things what you said had to do with the pacing, because
yes,
because that example you brought up was kind of heart wrenching, gut wrenching. Because every game, I feel like, especially modern games, has that point where they kind of do a false ending, where you know you've made it to the place where the characters or where your story is supposed to end, and not to get into it before we get there, but God of War kind of does it. But it's all, like you said, they can do it tastefully though. And I think a lot of games have gotten bad about doing it multiple times over. Because like if you do it once, I think you kind of get forgiveness. It's like, okay, we're going to pad the story out a little bit because you weren't done yet. I get it. But then if it happens 4 or 5, 6 more times where the bad guy rushes in, not this time, and foils you, it gets old. It genuinely does.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, the two games that came to mind, two recent games, are both Nintendo games, actually. One was Super Mario Odyssey. I guess I haven't really answered my own question that well. I don't have like a perfect time. I think 25 hours sounds lovely. I'm more of like well, yeah, it sounds lovely. I did just play. I have a lot of long form games that I love to jump into and spend lots of time in, but I find that as I get older, I get less interested in those. So like I'm really, really excited to finally buy Elden Ring sometime. But I'm also really nervous that I'm gonna be playing it and I'm just not gonna have time to get into it. And it's my first like Souls-like game, and it seems so massive. And I'm like, man, am I just gonna? Is it well paced? I don't know. So two games that I loved, like in terms of, well, just in general, but specifically how I felt like they ended when they should have. First was Mario Odyssey. That was a game that was so full of life and things to do and delight.
Yeah.
You could spend as much time as you wanted in each zone, you know, finding moons. And then when you got bored, you probably had enough moons to go to the next zone and didn't have to worry about, you know, maybe once or twice you were like, oh, I got to finish. And the zones were pretty cool. You know, some were better than others, but they were well spaced out. And then at the end of the game, it was like, look, all these zones are refreshed. You can go keep playing, which I did. There's these two like Dark of the Moon zones.
Yeah, those
and there's
great.
like a secret level that's like a huge gauntlet level, and it's super cool. And I got to that, and it was like, you know, thanks from the developers for playing our game. And I was like sobbing a little. I'm like, it's finally over. And that was it. Like I still have that save file. I still goof around for a few minutes sometimes. But I've never felt the need to go back or play it again. And I'm like super content. On the other hand, Metroid Dread came out, I guess last year. Wow. And that was a game that it's basically a linear experience, even though it feels like you are exploring and figuring things out on your own. And it has those items, the same as you just described, where it's like, oh, I know that I'm pretty much done because my inventory is beginning to fill out. I spent a lot of time. So my first playthrough, I played 16 hours, which is kind of long. And I 100%ed it. So I got all the missile expansions. I got all the little secret doodads.
Oh, wow.
And cleared the map. Got lost a few times. Did all the little boost puzzles. Like, had a lot of fun doing it. Took my time. Final boss was great. Never felt like I was rushed or anything. And I immediately started playing again when the game ended. But I played on hard mode, and I beat that in about 6 hours. Didn't bother trying to 100% it. I just played through for not for speed, but you know, to stay on the track. And then once I beat hard mode, I was like, great, I feel good about this. They added like a new game plus. No, they added some more modes. They added a boss rush mode. I'm like, I'm good. So for me, that was like the perfect length. Even though I played it twice, each playthrough felt like a different experience. And to me, that was just perfect. Kept my attention the whole time.
You got me thinking because, you know, thinking about timing, I think maybe the perfect game. And okay, so I was going to mention that maybe me being an adult changes this. And maybe it does.
I'm sure
we can talk about that later. But one thing I've noted is that I really do enjoy games that can be distilled within 10 to 15 hours. And then they give you the option to kind of continue the experience if you want to, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like Hades, for example. We've talked about Hades plenty. And, you know, so our viewers are, familiar with it. I like how Hades did it, where I had one goal that took me about that long to get to, let's be honest, maybe less. But like I hit that point and I felt like I beat the game. Now, I might have some misgivings because I felt like, oh man, they did me wrong by sending me back, or whatever. But like, I felt like I got what I wanted out of that experience. And I felt like, yeah, there's so much more that I can do, aka, a la Steve playing the game forever. But I feel like I got what I wanted. And I felt like it was a great experience. I could still give it a 9.5 out of 10, even though I didn't experience everything, because they really made me feel like I accomplished the goal that I wanted, and the same for the Dead Rising. I think that's why I like Dead Rising a lot, because you play it, there's a limited amount of time, it ends, and honestly, you could stop there. But if you want to new game plus it or whatever, you can and get more out of the story, more out of the experience. But I feel like games that kind of I don't know what's the word, like gate you from like getting that entire experience.
Oh yeah,
are what kill me. Like it's too much game, because like for example, and then a game will go, oh well, do you just want to play story mode where the game is easy,
right?
And da 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 da. And for me as a gamer, that's like it's so hard for me to select that mode. Like it's so hard, and I just want to experience the game. But for me to, I don't know, as a gamer, the pride in me is like, no, at least let me play it on normal, or at least just tell me, hey, you can play on normal, but everything else is optional, side missions. Cool. Then I can just main path it,
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I love when a game has a main path, because it lets me get what I want out of the experience. But I hate when I have to do everything in order to experience it,
You know what game, I think a recent game that kind of did it really well, and also in that kind of created its own system for how difficult the game was Breath of the Wild. Because from the moment you start that game, they have a mini tutorial, but then you can go to the final boss immediately, and it'll be super difficult. So it's like, instead of telling you, hey, you want to play story mode, you go and experience the story to get better at the game, as well as make the final boss less challenging by getting the divine beast or whatever you want to do, upgrading your hearts. And then you finally go to the end whenever you're ready, type of thing. Like, you could never fight the final boss if you wanted to.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I think that works because it fits into what we're talking about. But I feel like that solution essentially just boils down to, hey, our game is only interesting as long as you have your own goal in mind. If you don't have a goal in mind, then you're going to be bored. And if you meet your goal and you start getting bored, I guess that's time to beat Ganon now and finish the game. Like, it's kind of what it felt like. Is like, all right, well, I'm kind of done with this game. Let me go ahead and beat Ganon so I can say I beat it.
Isn't that okay? Isn't that the perfect scenario where you can experience the game the way you want to?
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely upsides to it.
And even for me as a person who's always been a Breath of the Wild, not on the necessarily like the most positive side, like even though I never finished the game, I still feel like I enjoyed my time in it, and it's similar with what's the game you just talked about with Mario?
Mario Odyssey.
Odyssey, like I didn't finish Odyssey, but I feel like, I don't know, like for me personally, like Odyssey wasn't my cup of tea per se. I enjoyed it, I had fun, and then I was like, okay, I get it, I can beat this game. That's kind of how I felt about it, and I was like, let me move on to something else. And I've played so many Mario games in my life, like it's just another one par for the course. But saying that, I really enjoyed my experience. I'd still give it a 9.5, because it was, every moment it was great. And then when I decided to step away, it wasn't because I hated the game. It wasn't because they did something wrong. It was just like, I'm good. And I felt like I could walk away because of how
you earned its $60 price.
Exactly.
Tag.
For me. And I think that's okay.
For you. So do you think it's better for games to have like a defined ending where it's like, all right, in my head, the game is beaten when I get to the end of the story? Maybe this is arbitrary. What do you guys think? So we were just playing, not to get too much into it, we were just playing God of War. And this is such a big, deep game with lots of stuff to do. But I was playing it kind of in a rush because I wanted to talk about it with you guys. So I kind of decided, I'll do a few side missions and I'll see what pops up in front of me, but I'm not going to go out of my way to clear everything that I see. I'm just going to try to stay on the main path and beat the story. And once I do that, I feel like I'll be done with the game enough to review it and talk about it with you guys. And that's kind of a recent example, but sometimes that's how I feel about a game that's like too large.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, look, I just got to cut my losses and get to the end. And for you just said with Odyssey, you didn't have to do that. You just felt like, I've played it. I've liked it. I don't feel like I have to do anything more. But for me, I do feel like I have to at least finish the story or finish I guess, the intended experience. So do you think it's better for a game to have a so-called intended experience with a defined ending where someone will say, yes, this is what I did, now I've beaten it, now I can move on? Or do you think it's better for games to just kind of be wishy-washy and like, oh, you can just finish when you finish, and when you get bored, that's when the game ends?
I think that for a game to me to feel like it was worth my time, it needs to reward my time in some way. So if it's a linear game, the short answer is probably yes to that. But I don't remember a recent game that I've played that I've really enjoyed that I didn't finish. So a lot of times I just feel compelled to finish them. But in most cases, actually, Guardians of the Galaxy is a game that I played for quite a few hours that I didn't finish, that I don't really feel like I need to finish. Great game, but, and I hear that the ending's really good. But it's one of those games where it gave me enough along the way that I felt like my time was spent well, and I don't really need to return to it to finish it, because there's really nothing else that I'll get from playing it. And I guess it comes down to like a choice between it or a new game or a game that I actually do want to finish. But I think on the other side of that is a game that kind of doesn't end, but still has ways of bringing you back in. And so for me right now, that would be Fortnite, which I think in these live service games, if you want to call them that kind of reinvent themselves every couple of months. They don't end, but they give you rewards and challenges, and it's one of the main multiplayer games I play, and so it has that nuance. And so the values has just got to be there in some way that I think endings on their own don't always supply.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where some games have they have something to tell you. Like I'll use Horizon Zero Dawn. Like Horizon Zero Dawn is a huge game, right? And there's something about Horizon Zero Dawn, and Rob, shout out to Rob, who we were talking about it. It's one of those games that makes you want to play every bit of it. Like get every challenge, do every side mission, do every random objective.
Why?
Right?
What do you mean?
And I would say that it's because every side mission objective and things like that is meaningful from a gameplay perspective, from a purely gameplay perspective. So every time I do one of these trials, I can get more, I have an opportunity to get kind of like more experience, number one, and do another trial that eventually will get me a special set of gear, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, I really want this gear because gear has different impacts. It's interesting way that they do the system. So like it number one, it like has a like definitive like win condition. Like, oh, if I do this trial, I'm going to get something. Also, the trials are fun and they challenge you to use like weapons and materials and things that you wouldn't normally use and like teach you new skills because you didn't know like, oh man, the rope caster allows you to hit an animal and stick them to the ground. Man, this is really effective against these type of enemies. So like every time you do a side mission, you feel like you're learning something. You're getting some experience, equipment, something like that. And it makes your main story gameplay that much more enjoyable, right? Sure. And so the difficult part that actually came in that game is that I would spend all my time doing the side missions. Like I would never do any of the main story missions. And like I would only do what I had to do in the main story so I could get more side missions. And then there was a point where I pretty much did all the side missions and then I was just doing the main story. And then I felt like it was dragging because it was like they wanted to tell me something, but they were like telling it to me in the most like I don't know, like
cinematic. Boring.
I think, yeah, like Kyle said it earlier, the pacing of it was like, okay, like I got to walk and I got to read all these diaries and then listen to these audio logs, but I'm walking through a facility and did it like, I would rather just a cutscene that told me all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because the story was interesting, fun, and something that I think everybody would enjoy, but it just felt like it dragged on. So I don't know if I really answered your question, but what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is that like, I don't think either of those, I don't think I like either more. I think that a game just needs to really lean into what it is
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and not try to be something it isn't. If that makes, like, why am I doing a deep, like, if the story is going to be mediocre in a sports game, don't put the story in. You know what I'm saying? Like, just focus on making the sports game great.
Would it be
You know?
fair to maybe summarize what you're saying is don't dilute your like main gameplay with other gameplay that isn't fun, or other experience that isn't fun?
Yeah, or the elements. So, like I said, I'm not answering your question, but really what I was saying is that, like, I think both are true. Like, yeah, I like games that just get me straight to the game and, like, let's go. But I think those games do really well because they know that that's the best part, right?
Yeah.
So they keep you on that track, you know, so, you know.
Yeah.
That's what's so fun about Hades. It's just, you're just running the dungeon over and over.
I think
Did I tell you guys I'm approaching like 99 or 100 runs in that game?
Wow. So is that 100?
That's crazy.
That's not 100 hours because you can do a run in like 15 minutes sometimes. Huh?
I mean, I've never done one in 15 minutes. Have you? Jeez.
Well, I mean, like if you die.
Oh, correct. Yeah, I guess I have done them in 15 minutes. No, it's less than 100 hours. You're right. Although it's probably, well, there might be more because I also spend time talking with people outside of runs.
True.
But not that much time. Yeah, I'm like getting close to being friends with all the gods and doing a few other things I wanted to do. Finish some of the stories. Anyway, Hades is great. Okay. Well, that's good talk. Thanks for watching, everyone. No, I'm kidding. So, all right.
Ready.
So there's a lot of time in these games. How do you guys? I think I know where this answer is going to go, or I think I know what clarifications you guys will make. How do you guys choose how you spend your money? Right, like when you're buying a new game, how do you decide out of all the games that are on sale, or maybe are currently hyped, or maybe just are old hyped, like classic games you want to play, or something? Like what, when you have money to spend and you're looking to spend it, how do you spend it? And other than buying games, I know sometimes we replay games. So how often do you guys replay games you really like versus buying new games you want to try? Like what does that strategy look like for you guys?
Okay, so I'm going to answer the first question. I want to, because I think there's the replaying games.
Objection, compound.
Yeah, I'll answer it later. But I think for me, at least now in my life, I only buy games if I know I'm going to play them. That's like pretty much now. Like I don't do what I used to do, which was like backlog games.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I used to, on Steam, there's a sale. Let me get it now because I know I want to play it, you know, or, like there's a sale on X, or, I saw it in the store and it was really cheap. Like I rarely do that. I did that recently and I kind of regret it. Like I bought Deathloop, like it was like on sale or something.
How much was it on sale?
You know, it was pretty new, so it was still like $50 or $40.
Ooh,
and
okay, yeah.
And I want to play Deathloop, but likelihood is that's going to be probably another 6 months before I get to it. Like, honestly, when I think about it. And so I think my strategy now is just simply, I want to play you. If I want to play you, I'm going to buy you now. Like, if I want to play you now, I'll buy you now, you know? Like, I don't prep anymore like I used to when I was younger. If I had the money and the game was coming, I'd buy it, you know? So yeah, I think I'm more of just like, this game, I play it now, I buy it now. I buy it now, I play it now. Like, that's kind of my strategy, I think, for gaming at this point.
I would say that I'm definitely moving more towards that point. There have been, I would say I'm still in a place where if a game looks interesting, especially if it goes on sale, or if it's at that early access discount, I'm more likely to buy it. But I would say that it's just as likely I'll buy a game with the intent to play it and not play it that I'll buy it with the intent to play it and play it all the way through and play nothing else. So I just really don't know until I have it in my hands what I'm going to do with it. But it's been a while since I've paid full price for a game, or it's rarer now that I'll pay full price for a game, even if I want to play it.
So you're saying that you don't buy games when they're on sale. You just buy them when you want to play them, but you also don't pay full price for them. Did I hear that right?
Well, you're trying to change what I'm saying.
I'm trying to summarize what you're saying. Did I hear that right?
No, he said that he buys game. If he sees a game that's on sale and it's something he wants, he'll get it.
Okay.
With the intention of playing it in some short form.
Got it.
No, and actually, I was gonna say, like, it's funny that you say that, Kyle, because I was just thinking, I was like, I'm actually just in a constant backlog state. Like, I'm never playing the game that I want to play that just came out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still haven't played Elden Ring because I just know I won't have time to play it, And so every game, I get on discount because I'm like, I'm not going to play full price because I'm not going to play you now at full price, And to be honest, like, I regret buying games when I saw them on sale because I recently bought a game when it was on sale, didn't play it for a while. Then by the time that I was ready to play it, it was on sale for a cheaper price.
Even more discounted.
And I might as well have just waited because, like, games are always on sale now, if it's not the first, like, weeks or months,
There's a huge reward for waiting to buy games. Unless they're Nintendo games and they become rare and they double in price on Amazon and eBay.
Right. Yeah, I've seen where games will go on sale, but the sales are like so inconsistent.
Sure, yeah.
So I guess I don't have the opportunity to see that a game is cheaper than it was, how much cheaper it was when I got it. But so rarely do I regret. But I'll agree with you, Steve, on Nintendo games that it's rare if they go on sale at all, much less change in price
in the first couple of years.
Yeah. They are proud of their games.
So I think that I used to have the mentality, or I've up until now, basically, I've had the mentality Kyle was describing, which is, I'll put the games that I want to play on a wish list, and I'll get some sort of email when they're on sale, and that's when I'll buy them, even if I'm not ready to play them in that moment. But what I'm realizing is that I really should have the mentality that Brad has, which is, don't buy the game until I'm about to play it right now. Because I'm also in a state of perpetual backlog. Gosh, let me look at my Steam backlog right now. It's insane. But like, actually, you know what? I'll say this. It's not insane. It feels insane to me because I know how long it's going to take me to get through it. But I know people with dozens and dozens and dozens of games in their backlogs that they probably will never, ever play, Kyle. And that would stress me out.
Guilty as charged.
Not to mention games you get for free from like PlayStation Plus and Game Pass if you have it. Like, no, man, I could never do Game Pass because I want to finish games. I don't want to just dabble in them.
Real talk. I had an experience where I bought a game on my PlayStation and I didn't get to it quick enough and it showed up on PlayStation Plus. And I was like, see, this is why I don't buy games that I don't. Like, I might as well have just waited out because by the time I got to PlayStation Plus, I probably was in the market to start playing it. So it's like, man, it's tough. And I just want to shout out Soy because he wrote in our podcast discussion thread, he said, also, time is undefeated. Games just fit in where they can, And I feel like that's kind of how it feels with there being too many games, too much game, whatever you want to call it. It's like at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter how many games I purchase or buy or want or whatever. It's like I just got to get it in when I can, and just hope for the best.
Yeah, and I think an issue I have now is that I'm beginning to have two competing philosophies about what the games are that I want to play. On one hand, I've always been super into, I'll just play things at my own pace whenever I get to them. That's how I grew up. I didn't play a lot of games. I've talked about it. I didn't have an avid gamer phase until like a little after college maybe, or during the end of college. And so there's lots of games that I didn't play until much later, and I was happy with that. Mm-hmm. And so part of me thinking along those lines, I just have this huge backlog and I'm like, these games are so great. I can't wait to play them. When I finish this one, I'll start the next one on the backlog and I don't need to buy anything. I'll just have these really old games on my wish list. And when they go on a steep enough sale, I'll add them to the backlog because I want to play them too. On the other hand, as I have become more of like an hobbyist gamer and I've made a lot of friendships in that space, I'm more involved with like the hype around new games. So again, Elden Ring, huge hype. And it hurts me so much to see all my friends playing and talking about it, not to mention YouTubers and news articles about it and all the stuff that keep popping up in my feed. It's everywhere. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could play this. And so that feeling, not just missing out. Well, yeah, kind of. Yeah. I'm missing out on the shared experience of games. Like I would never play Apex Legends except for with you guys. It's just not my type of game. I don't really enjoy this kind of thing. But even something like Elden Ring is kind of outside of to some extent, it's super me. But in other respects, it's outside my wheelhouse. It's just unknown to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably wouldn't have been as hyped as it was coming out. And a game like Mario Odyssey or Metroid Dread, 100% is part of my old philosophy. So that's why I had so much joy playing it. Plus, I think I had more time to play those when they came out. And so I'm like, on one hand, I just want to go through my backlog and just basically backlog myself forever. Play old games as they go on sale and as I have time. But I also am fighting to play new games as they come out and like enjoy them with my friends as my friends are playing them and expose myself to new genres and experiences and things like. So it's hard. It's hard to make that choice. Right now, I'm basically like, I'm going to buy 1 or 2 big games a year, probably. Maybe. And just hope that I can play them. If I can't play them, I might buy one every year or 2. Other than Dread, I don't think I bought any major games last year.
You got me thinking about, I had a similar experience, where I liked games a lot when I was younger, but I didn't have a whole lot, because, once you get to later in high school, college, it's when you finally get money, right? So you can start to buy. Mm-hmm. I mean, gaming it can be a pretty expensive hobby, consoles every couple of years, games being. It's
expensive for us, I would say. It was expensive up to a point, but we have reached a level of luxury and the class of our income makes it not really that expensive unless you're just balling out and like buying everything you see.
Right.
But as teenagers, it absolutely was expensive. When you're on an allowance or on a minimum wage job or something, 100%.
Yeah. And so in that, like the thought process back then was, especially in high school, if I want a new game, I have to sacrifice my old games to get it. And so in getting a new game, my backlog would also reduce. Like if it happened to be a game I hadn't played or an old game that I might play again, either way, it was gone. GameStop got it and I got my new game. And it's like now that's flipped over, especially because of Steam, because you can't return anything easily.
Right.
And so like your backlog's continually growing and it's not even the same situation, but I also think it's got like a bit of a psychological thing to it because if you like, I'm not a game hoarder, I wouldn't say, but I enjoy having a library and Steam allows me to do that in a way that I couldn't when I was younger and would have liked to have had a library.
I would say that fundamentally times have changed, right? So how games are distributed, how we deal with them is different. So like, it's a very different dynamic than when we were children, right? Sure. And definitively there were less games when we were younger, right? Like 100%. That's just a fact.
Oh, yeah.
But also the distribution system was very different. So like Blockbuster was huge. I think I mentioned this, like it was huge for me and my brother and sister, right? Mm-hmm. Like we more or less got the opportunity to rent a game at least every other weekend, maybe once a month. Like it just kind of depends. I can't really remember. Mm-hmm. So like you pay, and we had a Blockbuster membership. So, you go there and you pay like, $3 or $5 to rent the game, for the day or two or however long. Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of times how we played games in my childhood was like, get it in, boy, because you ain't getting it again. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of games that I played like binged them. You know what I'm saying? Like, we didn't own many games, but I played a lot of games. You know what I'm saying? Because of that,
right.
that ability to rent. And I feel like nowadays, I don't know if kids have that same experience or opportunity to like rent games. So they're kind of almost at the liberty. They're almost forced to have to get a huge backlog, right? They have to buy games on sale. They have to, like, if I was a kid now, I probably wouldn't get a chance to play as many games because my parents just simply wouldn't fork over a credit card for me to buy a game, even if it was $5 on Steam. And I feel like now as an adult, yeah, like the finances aren't an issue, but like, I don't know. Like, I feel like you were saying, Steve, like you kind of have these two like philosophies that are like bouncing their heads against each other. Like, one, you want to enjoy the games the way that you enjoy them. And two, you want to enjoy games with your friends. Like, I feel like I have the same issue as well. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in the past, when I was a kid, I could do both at the same time because I would rent a game. My friends would come over and we'd play it together or whatever, and then like it would go back to the store and and that's it. That's the end of that experience. And, we move on to the next one if we get lucky, And then also I didn't get new games except for like on my birthday and Christmas. So whatever game I got was deeply researched for the most part, as much as I could research it back then. And even if it was Garbo, I was playing that game 100+ hours.
Play the mess out of those games.
Yeah.
So
without a memory
like
card.
It was bad for me because my birthday was like right after Christmas. So like
you ain't getting that.
I had one time a year.
Oh, snap.
Got a game.
You better get the right one.
The struggle is real.
So I don't know. I just feel like it's a dilemma. And like, I just, I think about myself as an adult, but let me ask y'all this. Do you feel like kids in this time are missing out on the experience of really enjoying games? Like, in the way that, like, there's a lot more games. There's much more games.
Please.
But, like, all the kids really, I mean, if I was a kid, all I would play was Fortnite. You know what I'm saying? Or, like, one of these live service games. But I wouldn't be playing all these other, like, unique experiences, and you know what I'm saying, like, and without a blockbuster or something that exists, like, how do you even engage with them other than to buy them? I feel like kids this day and age, if their parents aren't doing really well, are probably having a really difficult experience just enjoying games, other than mobile games, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, you're right compared to the kids who have parents who are doing well, but I think compared to when we were kids, the kids who had parents that weren't doing well, they just didn't play games at all. I don't know, maybe they rented a lot. But I didn't rent games. We had a GameCube, but we never rented, as far as I remember. So I think even Fortnite is better than nothing.
Yeah, free games definitely have changed. And free and mobile games have really changed, I think, what kids even play. Like, I guess the only points of reference I really have, like, my nephews and my wife's brother. I guess my son
and your wife,
brother-in-law. I was going to say son-in-law because he's a whole lot younger than us. I think so. To see what they get into, it's really very reminiscent of when I was coming up. At least they only have a handful of games that they play. But I will say the biggest difference is that they have phones, or they use their parents' phones, and they watch a lot of gaming YouTubers. And so they'll watch them play Minecraft and Fortnite and Mario Odyssey and even GTA, because they have all the mods and stuff with all the superheroes. Like, so I think they have different outlets to get more into gaming. And I think that's also if their parents aren't big gamers, because my brother and his wife, they don't play a whole lot of games. So my nephews don't play a whole lot. My sister isn't into games, so her son doesn't play a whole lot. And then, my wife's little brother, they don't even have internet at their house, and so he's got an Xbox One, and so he plays that. But So I think it also depends on where the parents are at as far as gaming. If they have a Steam account, then I think the kids are probably much more.
Ooh, man, my kids are going to be hooked up on Steam.
Yeah. Because there was a guy actually at my church who's a pretty avid gamer. He's got a Steam account. He actually, you made 6 Steam accounts years ago whenever Call of Duty was, they had the LAN parties through Steam. And he used to do a big thing. So he's a big gamer. So his kids are, really into it. And so it's a completely different side of the field. A lot of different variables play into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, like, that's an interesting thought I thought about, Kyle. Like the way, like, maybe kids these days are doing basically the same thing. If you think about it, like, for me, right, I would say I grew up lower middle class, and then I had 2 siblings. So basically everything that we got was communal, right? So we had an N64. If we bought a game, it was all of our games. It's like, and so, but it was perfect for my parents because they would buy us one gift for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it kind of worked out. And some people laugh because when I was a kid, like I knew Christmas, I got one gift, like one group gift, and then one gift that was maybe my own.
Yeah.
But it would be like, oh, I get like some like a new shirt, like with like Mario on it. And then I get a game with that all 3 of my siblings, we all would play together, So, limited exposure. But the thing that really kept me connected was like gaming magazines that I would get from like GameStop or from my friends or whatever. And that was kind of my YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
that's how I heard about every game and like, oh, the new like siphon filter and the new Halo, the new this and that. Like I would read it like as if I was there playing the game. Right. Now kids have YouTube.
It really made you feel like you were playing a game.
Really, like honestly, those days, like reading those magazines were like my favorite part of the month.
They were really well written,
cover to cover, man. I'd read them cover to cover, and I would just be watching YouTube now. I guess I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think, there's definitely probably more opportunities for kids to play games, but I do definitely think about what we were playing. We were playing Flash games, like the free Flash games. That's basically the Fortnite.
That's true. Yeah.
Oh, dang, you're right. We were playing low-tier garbage games.
That's whatever we could get our hands on. Mobile games. Mobile games are basically the new era of Flash games,
100%,
right?
Yeah.
Like it's free, it's accessible. And you don't need to have like a beefy computer or anything special. You just need a computer.
And it looks just as trash in a lot of cases.
Just as trash. Operates just as trash. But kids love it. I loved it, So.
Sure, yeah.
Special place in my heart.
So given the scarcity of time and the large backlogs that we have and the sheer rate of... Well, would you guys agree that that a lot of really high, like just think about the games that you would want to play that come out in a given year. Would you agree that even like the high quality, nice games that cater to you specifically, there's too many of them? I feel like we might have touched on this earlier, but I want to make sure we're on the same page.
I would say yes. There's too many good games out there.
Yeah. Okay. So given the scarcity of time and the quality of these good games, where do you get off replaying old games when you could be playing new games?
Aggressive question.
Do you, that really felt, yeah, like this felt, I feel offended. I don't know. I feel attacked.
You should be attacked. No, I'm a main offender. I haven't done it recently, I guess, but I replay old games sometimes. I used to replay old games a lot.
Let me just be really real. Like I think that when I play a game, I want to enjoy myself.
Sure.
That is my primary goal. My primary goal is not to be cool or be with the coolest game that's out or, like impress anybody. My goal is to have a good time.
Of course.
And it's kind of like choosing a show on Netflix or Hulu or any of those weird streaming platforms. I don't randomly click on anything. Even if I know it's like people have been saying it's good, I won't necessarily dive into it. what I'll end up doing when I'm not sure is go back to a show that I like, that I know I'll have a good time with sometimes, like, oh, let me just watch some Bob's Burgers because I know I'll have a good time, And I think that's how I feel about old games, is that I know I'm going to have a good time. Like, I'm not going to go in there. I have to go through a 5-hour tutorial. I can't play with my friends. Then when I try to play with my friends, other people can jump into my game. And then I try to, we try to get in a party together. And then like 8 hours have passed and I haven't really played the game, even though this is the game that everybody loves. You guys probably know what game I'm talking about specifically. Chimeraland,
right?
Stardew Valley?
No, I'm surprised you guys didn't catch this. A game that we played together about catching monsters, and you're a hunter, and you're trying to play with your friends, but you can't play at the same time.
No, I
Pokemon. My bad.
That's Pokemon.
He's talking about Pokemon.
He's talking about Pokemon. But anyway, I say all that to say, like, the reason I play backlog game, or I'm sorry, I keep saying backlog game, old games, is because I know I'm gonna have a good time, and that's simply it. Like, I don't.
Would you say that your default is to play an old game unless you see a game that you're like, oh, now this looks good, I need to play this right now? Same with Netflix. Is it the same mentality?
I mean, I think the reality is, since I have so little time, it tends that I play a game that I haven't played. But I play old games when I'm not sure what to play, if that makes sense.
It's like your filler experience.
Exactly. Like, I normally watch newer stuff on Netflix or Hulu or something, but when I'm sitting down and I'm not sure what I want to watch, then I'll normally watch an old show,
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you something, buddy. What I do with my time is my choice. I just wanted to respond to your question with the same amount of aggression.
Not if I have anything to say about it.
But I ultimately... So, when you say old games, do you mean games that came out a while back that I haven't played, or ones I have played?
I mean games that you've played before, either to completion or just over time.
Old to you.
Old to me.
Old to you. Like, I've played Half-Life 2 probably a dozen times. I've never played Half-Life 1. I will never play Half-Life 3 because it won't exist. But I've played that game a lot.
I think there's only one game that I go back to every couple of years. Otherwise, the old games that I do play are maybe a year or two old, and it's only because I'm playing it with someone else. But the game that I go to every couple of years is Gotcha Force, and it's purely for the nostalgia. That game holds up super well, and there isn't a game that I at least have access to that scratches the same itch. Even it's jank in a lot of ways. Like, it came out in like 2003 or something. So, no patches, unfortunately. But now that I mentioned patches, actually, that's another reason why I don't play a lot of modern games, is because when they come out, they're buggy messes, and I don't want to pay full price for a buggy mess. But
no, that'd be stupid.
Right. So are you saying that you don't replay any other game other than Gotcha Force?
As far as a really old game?
Well, not. I think what Steve was saying is
not an old
not
game.
Old. He means
old
like, why do you replay games when you have other games to play?
Yeah.
That's essentially what he was trying to say. Like, so is that the only game that you replay?
No, I mean, like, I play Fortnite a pretty good bit. Every couple of months, I'll get back to it.
But wouldn't you say that Fortnite is a new game because it's a live service? They're always adding new stuff. Like,
plus you're playing with your friends.
I would think about like a replay game, a game that's static in time.
So a game that's frozen in time that I continually play. Mario Kart would probably be like the only thing.
Ooh, yeah, okay.
But no, there aren't like any story based games that I've played through again.
Really,
that's interesting.
So I wasn't even yelling at you just now. You've completely dodged my ire.
Yeah, Kyle is literally the ultimate gamer. He only plays forward.
He's like a carnivore. He only eats new meat.
Like, he's like, nope, I'm not. I already played that.
So
why would I do that again?
I've tried a couple times, but even games that have new game plus mechanics, if you want to call it that. I mean, you just start over with your same stuff, and so you're like really powerful in the beginning. that I know what's going to happen. And so it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything new whenever I'm playing a linear game again.
Sure.
And so I'll say this, I have kind of the same issue with rewatching movies a lot of times.
Sure.
I have a hard time forgetting experiences. And so doing it again, even if it's fun, I guess, kind of, if the story beats are the same, I feel like I'm going through the motions, and it just like irks me. It feels like I'm wasting my time. Like physically, I feel like I'm in pain.
See, I feel the same way about story, but with movies and probably with games as well, there's other elements that I enjoy. Like with a movie, if say a comedy, right? Like if I'm watching a comedy, even though I know the joke is coming, maybe there's like a visual gag that there's elements of artistry that aren't spoiled by my knowledge of them. In fact, they're like, oh, I didn't even notice that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when he clapped his hands twice and it was really funny, but like the person next to him was also clapping. I didn't see. Sometimes there's more details to see. Sometimes it's just reappreciating the same details. Like, oh, I just love the face when Scott Pilgrim, realized that all of Ramona's exes weren't ex-boyfriends. Like, that's a fun gag. Or actually, the actual fun gag is him jumping out the window when his roommate is like, oh yeah, he just left. That junk's hilarious. I will watch Scott Pilgrim with anybody who asks, probably within a month. No, without a month. Anyway, sorry. No, that's interesting that you only think about the story, I guess, when you're watching and playing.
Well, I was going to say, well, go ahead, Kyle. Yeah,
I'll admit that there are outliers for sure, but ultimately, that's where I am. So,
sure.
So yeah, there are movies and games that I would be willing to play or watch again. I just typically don't.
So
interesting.
So okay, I got a question for you, Kyle, but I also wanted to. So I totally get what you're saying, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Movies are like that with me as well. I mean, I already struggle with most movies because I feel like most of them are like easy to figure out exactly what's going to happen, and they're just so boring to me. But like, I feel that there are some movies that I really like. For example, Ex Machina. Like, I could watch that a lot. Or of course, my favorite movie of all time, Sunshine. But Ex Machina is a movie I'll watch by myself again because I just love the implications of what's going to happen. I love sci-fi, right?
The implication.
So like, I'm like, ooh, interesting thinking about it. And like little nuances that I missed the first time because it's a really cool movie. But like Sunshine, I won't watch by myself, right? I only rewatch it with other people because I love reliving that experience with other people.
The people you watch with make a movie
sometimes. So like
watching
watching Sunshine again is my favorite experience in life because I don't even want to talk about it. If you haven't seen Sunshine, you just need to watch it. But I was going to ask you, Kyle, so would you say that most of the games that you play would be single player story based games? Like, and what I mean is like a game with a heavy narrative element to it. Like,
those are
not just a plot, but it's heavily plot focused.
Like for example, we're going to talk about God of War, but God of War has a heavy narrative that drives it. So would you say that most of the games that you play are heavily narrative games?
The ones I lean toward most, yes. Typically, I'm playing by myself, and so those, I guess, are the things that make the most sense to me. When I was younger, I did play, I guess, a lot of more multiplayer games. And so, but I guess that doesn't count as playing by myself, because I'd usually hop on with, it'd be strangers, like, Halo lobbies and stuff. But that was just where I was at. So now, yeah, I'd say if a game plays out in more like a movie, but has really strong gameplay elements, then I would likely be drawn to it.
Interesting. So like The Last of Us, Telltale games.
Not Telltale games. Telltale games cross a line for me.
Sure. All right. That's understandable.
Spider-Man, of course,
for
God
sure.
of War,
Yeah.
anything with that kind of and that actually makes a lot of sense of why you don't like to replay games, or that you don't replay games a lot, because for me the games that I replay tend to be like mechanic heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yes,
I play a lot of the turn-based strategy games again, because like the story is like whatever. Most of the time they're like absolutely nonsensical. but the mechanics are really fun, and like every time I could play the same exact scenario 10 times and it'll play out differently. Right? Or like I said, Dead Rising, the story is the story, but every time I play it, it's a little different, and I approach it differently. I try to optimize it. I try to something different, and it's a mechanics heavy game. And I assume that Gotcha Force is a more mechanics game than it is a story game. It's like, am I right?
You are correct in that assumption.
interesting.
So I we're kind of on Kyle now, but I think that makes sense. Like, he wouldn't replay a lot of games, because why would you replay? Like me, I probably will never replay Spider-Man unless there was something that I like fundamentally missed about a mechanic or something, that makes the game new. It's like,
Same.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm just playing for the story and, the ride, the journey,
Exactly. And I think that's why the new game plus wasn't interesting to me, because I think Spider-Man has great gameplay, all the mechanics and stuff, the different gadgets, super fun, but it just wasn't valuable to me to start over with everything. It doesn't, because I was there for the story, which I'd already experienced. So when the DLC came out for the first Spider-Man, I was all over that. Like I dropped whatever I was playing after Spider-Man came out just to play the new DLC, which is fantastic, by the way, if you're able to get it, if you're playing through it. But new story will draw me back to a game I've played before.
So let me now. I just have this question now.
Mm-hmm.
Is it that games is it that there's too many games that are like narrative now as well? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like there's like this weird thing. Was it you, Kyle, or Steve were talking about? It's like you can't play too many like narrative games at the same time.
It might have been me.
It's like, and I'm similar. It's like I can only play like one game that has like a really strong story, because I have to pay attention to that one. And I might play other games around it, like, I'm going to play Pokemon Unite and, Triangle Strategy or something.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
it isn't just the story. It's about like the complexity of the game.
Yes.
Like something like God of War doesn't just have a strong story. It's just such a big world.
yes,
Everything about it gets deeper.
I'm like, if I, especially because I was on something of a time crunch, but even if I wasn't, it's not something that I would want to balance against like Halo or something.
Like 3 other games that are maybe just as intense. Like,
yeah.
Like, I could play Fortnite, Apex, Triangle Strategy, Pokemon Unite, and whatever, all at the same time, right? So, and enjoy myself, like, within the same, period of time.
He plays games. He uses his feet with the controls.
But I couldn't play Witcher 3, God of War, and Spider-Man at the same time.
No.
God, no.
You die.
And so that makes games even more oppressive.
Because
You might be right. Yeah. And so like when I was playing God of War, I was trying to focus on it for you guys, but I was also playing Hades and a little bit of Mario Kart on the side. And only Mario Kart because the DLC came out recently. Like I didn't play any computer games, not really. I would have played Gears with my friends. I was just too busy. But other than that, it was pretty much just Hades and Mario Kart and God of War.
I think you brought up a good point, Brad. Where we've kind of been maybe dancing around the point, but another reason why we choose a game over other games is just how much focus it takes to play a game.
Yeah.
Because, those 3 you mentioned, because of the story, because of how deep the games are, because they add on new mechanics as these 40-hour stories play through, that takes a tremendous amount of focus to keep track of all that stuff. And then the game's also getting more difficult. And so, if you're playing all 3 of them, I bet all 3 of them are on story mode. Like, there's no way that you're actually having engaging combat experiences, or the puzzle mechanics are actually challenging you, or whatever it is, if you're playing them all at the same time. There's absolutely no way.
Y'all, I cannot wait till we talk God of War because I got to tell y'all about how me trying to start the new game plus, what that experience was like.
Oh, I would love to hear this.
But like, no, I agree. It's like it's just that how games are now. Like, cause to me, okay, first of all, let's be super real. Like you were saying earlier, Steve, there's just a lot of shovelware games out there, right? Like there's a lot of garbage. So too many games might be a misnomer because yeah, there's thousands and thousands of games, but let's be honest, we probably are only interested in like 3% of those games, right? Like in reality, like I'm not interested in most indie games unless they're of a high quality and doing something different. And even with the AAA games, not every AAA game is interesting to me, you know? Like, honestly, like in a year, I probably only care, like of new games that are coming out, there's maybe 2 to 3 games that really draw my attention that I'm like, oh, I actually want to buy this and play this. Yeah. You know, a lot of games, like I think we were having a discussion before, like, oh, a lot of games are like interesting and like you'd be interested in checking out, but like you don't necessarily, it's okay if you've seen enough of it online or enough trailers or enough YouTube videos to feel like you've gotten something like, oh, okay, this game seems cool. So the reality is like, there's a lot of games, but there's maybe not too many games. And this is my opinion, and y'all can share your opinion. It's just that the games that do exist that we might want to engage with are just so, like almost like I don't want to say a second job, but it's like you have to really work through them. Like you can't just, oh, I'm going to casually sit down and play Spider-Man. Like, no, like I have to sit down and play Spider-Man continuously and finish it so I can go on to the next thing, right? Like I can.
That's exactly how
it's
I feel.
It's a commitment.
I can. Yeah, it's commitment. There you go. It's commitment. Like these games are so much more of a commitment now, than they were, at least for me personally, I feel in the past, like, because if you play Zelda, like Ocarina of Time, you could say whatever you want to say, but the systems weren't super complex. There wasn't a RPG, like sphere grid upgrade system with multiple,
right. No skill trees.
Yeah, skill trees and like swapping out of runes and tablets and, outfits and gear. Like, it was just like, hey, this weapon does this and this weapon doesn't do this. You know what I'm saying? And I just feel like games are just too much.
They're dense. Every game is dense.
A commitment.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was so happy that we chose to play God of War because it kind of joins my two philosophies. It's a game that I bought physically. I'm ashamed. I bought this physically and didn't play it for years.
Hey, but now look
it was sitting on my shelf. Yeah, I was that man. It was something I always wanted to play. I just never really put the time down to play it because it looks so dense and I'd heard so many good things about it. And I really wanted time to just, chew on it.
Yeah. It's a feast.
But it's also a game that I got to experience through, with you, sort of, kind of.
Almost.
So this was like a happy intersection of my two philosophies. That's why I was so happy to do that. And that's also why I'm so against doing, I mean, we've talked a little bit offline about this, but like doing lots of video game deep dives, unless it's a game that's kind of already in my backlog. I don't want to like bring new games into my life and I'm going to have to play like God of War when I could be playing other games that I actually wanted to play,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's a hard choice. I mean, the same goes for like anime and TV and everything else, but like it's easier to consume that stuff. Games are like,
they take
effort.
They're active. It's funny because even though we didn't have like a decision on that we're going to talk about God of War on this podcast and, let me play this game. Like, to be honest, I feel like I rushed my experience with God of War as well because whenever I played at the beginning of this year, like, or end of the year, I can't remember when I started playing. I think it was December I started playing or something. Like, I felt like I rushed it because I wanted to get through it. Like, I really, we'll talk about it, but like, I really enjoyed what I was experiencing and I just wanted to keep playing, but I felt like I got, like, there's so much of this game and it's hindering me from playing other games.
Yeah.
Like, I really want to enjoy this experience, but the experience is so meaty that, like, I kind of forced it down my throat just so I could be done with it so I could experience it, so I could go back to my regular,
wow,
programming of games.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way.
Yeah, because it's a longer game, and and it is something that you don't typically do that takes, like you said, more energy. Because I feel, now that you mentioned that, I feel like most of the games that I really want to play, if I only play them, it kind of always has that same tone that I'm rushing through it, even though I'm kind of not. It's just like it's the only thing I'm playing at the time. So it seems like there's no breaks in between. I can't really I don't give myself a chance to walk away from it, think about what happened last time. There's nothing to anticipate, like with episodes of a TV show, for instance. Every week you get an hour, right? But if you're playing a game, 2 hours every night for 2 weeks, then it's just like that's all you've been doing. And so it feels like you're just rushing through a meal.
Yeah. I will say to its credit, and I think we probably shouldn't talk too much more about it, but to its credit, God of War is really well paced, it felt like to me at least. And so I think that it makes it a little easier going down. Feeling less like I'm rushing and more like I actually am enjoying myself. Like I actually am playing 2 or 3 hours in a row because I actually got pulled into it and not just because I feel like I have to get it done. And there's a little bit of that, and there probably would have been more if the game lagged a little or the story wasn't so compelling. Or there was the set pieces weren't set up when they were.
I agree. And I think I think we've all played Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. And I think Spider-Man had the same experience for me because I played it 2 games ago. It was like I played God of War and then I played Spider-Man and now I'm playing Witcher 3, And Spider-Man, once again, I have no timeline on this. Nobody's telling me to play Spider-Man, right? But one, I enjoy the game, so I want to keep playing it. But there's another part of me that's like, I need to finish this. I need to finish this. Nagging. Like it's just nagging at me. And it's weird. Maybe it's because we're adults and we haven't really talked about this as far as us being older. But I feel like there's one part of me where as an adult, I just feel like because my time, my leisure time is so precious, I have this really intense urge to I don't want to say binge, but to really force in as much as I can in the hour or 2 as I can that I have. Cause back in the day I would just linger in a game, I would just goof around, see what's going on, try to find weird secrets, glitch things, but now it's no.
You don't
have
have that
the
luxury.
best parts. Exactly.
That's wild to think about, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, guys, I still haven't finished Death Stranding. And during this conversation, I think I've come to the realization that I might as well uninstall it because, every time I play, which isn't very often anyway, but every time I play, I feel like I'm all right, I'm going to make another. I'm not playing because I want to, but I'm playing because it's been sitting in my install list for so long. And I'm I got to get rid of this thing.
Right.
I want to see the story. I want to see how it ends. But not just because I enjoy the world. I also feel like that game in particular, I've pretty much experienced the mechanics. I have experienced the gameplay and I love the gameplay. It feels weird for me to say how much I love the game, but I haven't finished it. I think I just burned myself out on doing too many side quests. Which the side quests aren't that much different from the normal quests. So, maybe that's a fault of the game is that it just feels like you're playing no matter what you do. So I might as well just do the main quests and rush through it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm ever going to finish it. And I think I have to just make that decision and let it go. and just be at peace,
It literally sounds like the way that I felt about Odyssey. For me, I would pick it up periodically to play a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Because I felt I'm not too far from the end. But I was eventually I just had to say, you know what? I've enjoyed my time with you. It's time for our relationship to end. I don't because the more I play it now, it just becomes a job, instead of me enjoying the experience like I was before,
That's sad.
Have you ever? Well, never mind. Sorry.
Go
ahead, Kyle.
I was going to say that's sad. I have kind of a love-hate relationship with my leisure time in adulthood. Like,
You hate your leisure time?
well, no, it's just whenever I feel like I have leisure time and I play a game, there's always like this not sinking feel, nagging in my mind that I should be doing something productive, you know? And it's something that I kind of just have to shove to the background every once in a while because I know I'll go insane if I don't step away from adulthood every once in a while. And
that's the realest. If that's not the realest thing you've ever,
it's the most really going to hear from me. Don't get used to it.
I get sad. I think about the fact that I can't really enjoy a good like video game binge. And when I say binge, what I really mean is like maybe 4 hours in a day of sitting down and playing a game, which is a lot, but isn't necessarily what most people would call a binge, I think. But I can't really enjoy that anymore because of what you just said, Kyle. There's either a hard time box that I'm stuck, I have something going on this evening, or it's on my lunch break or whatever, or I just feel like I have to do a bunch of things and I don't want to spend my whole day. But there is hope. I have found time, like last year around when Dread came out. Actually, yeah, when Dread came out, I was traveling, so I played a lot. And then after that, I had a little surgery, so I had like a day or two off from work before the weekend started, and I actually had to do things for the weekend. And I played hours and hours and hours, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is what it's like to just. And it didn't, I wouldn't want to do that all the time. I don't want to lose my time, but like it felt so good to just sit down and get immersed and not feel like I had to quit in an hour or 40 minutes.
Honestly, the only way that I feel that I could, you kind of described it, have one of those old school gaming session is if I was like sick in a way that I couldn't justify doing anything else.
Right.
Like, because like for me now, the thing that I balance is number one, being married, you want to make sure that you're thinking about household things and taking care of the business and doing what you need to do. But even outside of that, because that's not like every moment of my day, but like outside of that, there's things that I want to do to grow in my life, right? Like I want to grow my YouTube channel that I've been building, right? So sometimes it's a decision between, do I work on something YouTube related or do I play a game? Mm-hmm.
Also, there's other hobbies I have.
Exactly. Like, I'm like learning how to do Muay Thai and MMA and boxing. Do I go and like train for a little bit or do I play a game? And it just becomes these opportunity costs between all these things. And now, like you said, I feel guilty playing a game because I know that there's no benefit other than enjoyment,
Right.
And I have to like force myself sometimes to go, no, you're just going to play a game. And that's all you're going to do today, Brad. Like for the next hour, at least in your leisure time,
Because
sometimes I get a little jealous of my wife because she works 4 days a week.
Ooh.
So during the week, one of the days will be an off day and it moves around. And during her off days, sometimes she'll run errands, but it's usually like personal errands, like things that she wants to do, get her nails done.
That's for you.
Meet with people. It's not for me. It's not like grocery shopping or paying bills or something. She's doing her things, and I'm like, that's her time. She can do that. Or especially she'll like go to the spa. She'll have massages, and I'm like, man, I wish I had a day because I feel like on the weekends I'm with her, or I'm at church doing church things, or we have plans together, or something. Like my time is more or less accounted for on a given weekend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She has a whole day that she can just do what she wants.
That's nice.
Man, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like... Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
I was gonna say, so when you're younger, you do have time like that and even days like that. But it's like now doing these things that we know aren't productive feel like sacrificial. We're sacrificing something else.
PTO. I do have unlimited PTO now that I think about it.
Unlimited?
Just take the year off.
Yeah.
Well, you know how it is. These companies, they say it's unlimited,
it's not unlimited.
Take a day a week.
Whether it literally can't be unlimited. There's a limited number of work days in the year. But like
I'm taking 400 days this year.
in theory, the fact that I have to ask means that it could be denied. So there's like a psychological friction. You know, it's unlimited, but are you really going to use?
Don't need it.
Offline, I'll tell you exactly why that exists. Like I figured out.
Oh, I don't need you to tell me. I know
why offline.
The reason I bring it up is that it wouldn't hurt to take like a day or two a month just to play video games. Like I probably could get away with that, and maybe not just play video games, but just for leisure time.
But let me tell you, if you took those day or two off, I bet you'd find those day or twos would end up just you doing stuff that you didn't get done in your life. Like you'd be taking care of something at the bank,
getting the oil change.
You know what I'm saying? Like you'd be doing all this stuff. Like, all right, it's time to play games.
I mean, that is sad, but it's fine too. Like that stuff needs to get done. And if I have to take time off to do it and not be stressed about it on the weekends, and
what I'm saying is like you don't need to take time off to do it. But what will end up happening is that in your time off, you'll end up doing those things because you finally have the time to do them out of a normal cadence. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, I would be I'm very careful with my time off. I would probably plan, like schedule on a calendar, like 2 errands. And then the rest of the time I would say, Keisha, you will not bother me. I will not do any. I mean, obviously she needs me, but like, I do not do errands. I will not be cooking. I'll cook later.
Don't need me.
Don't come looking for me. No, but I would probably plan to do an errand or two, and then I would plan like 4 hours to play God of War or whatever I want to do. Yeah. That's my hope.
Man, the fact that you've got to schedule your day to play a game, man. Like that's.
I mean that, yeah.
Adulthood at its finest.
I think that's just how it's going to be. I'm fine with that.
Oh yeah. And honestly, I just feel like it's because, especially as Americans, you are looked down upon if you're not being productive, right? Like we live in a culture that's all about do, you know?
Do.
Like, you know, a lot of do.
He said do.
A lot of do. And, and I think like, hey, like we're all gainfully employed. We're all doing all right with ourselves. So you could theoretically just be like, all right, I'm good. Like, I don't really need to do anything else. But like in a world where like everybody's side hustling, everybody needs something. Oh, this person needs help here. You know, the church needs help here. Our friends need help here. Somebody needs help there. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard for you to just like put yourself in a zone where you can just truly, I don't want to call it self-care, but like just do your thing, you know? And I feel like a lot, in a weird way, I think in my mind, a lot of the things that I do to be productive are to get me into a space where I don't have to work a 9 to 5, but I can work at a schedule that works for me.
Real talk.
To accomplish the things that I think are meaningful and productive versus a lot of times, you know, work is, you know, a lot of times you're in an office or doing stuff that isn't always super productive, you know?
Work is work. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's video games, I guess.
Video games
and life.
Video games as an adult.
Man.
Too many games or too much games? What's the verdict? Do we think there's too many games or is there too much?
I think it's both. I think you brought up an excellent point, but I do think it's both, not necessarily just too much games.
I think overall, yeah, there's way too many. Like if you just went to try to select a game, you know, and every game, you know, so we have Steam, we have all these different services, we have itch.io, we have Congregate, every game that you could possibly choose from, you just type in a genre. Yeah, there's way too many games. But I think there's too much games, like you said, in the games that we want to play, that it keeps us from playing them if we just pick up one of them. Because they don't end or something along those lines. So yeah, I think both are a problem.
So would you say, and this is me just being kind of devil's advocate.
Let's hear it.
Like, would you say that in the same logic, you could say that there's too much food, right, in the grocery store, right? Like, there's like, oh, there's all these chips and drinks and blah, 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 blah. But really, the grocery store just has what you want and you're thankful for that. It'd be another thing to me. How I see it is like if I bought some Chips Ahoy cookies and I ate one cookie, I couldn't eat anything else for the rest of the day. So I'd like be choosing my meals very carefully, like, bro.
Well, so I mean, you joke, but I think it actually is like that. There is too much food.
Well,
like, think about, so you said if you ate one cookie and you couldn't eat anything else, that's extreme, but it kind of is like that. Like there's a limit to how much you can eat in general in a given day, but specifically like sweets and junk food, like if you're trying to be healthy, you can't have all right, so in our household, we basically buy like one or two snack for a week and one or two, like one sweet for the week. And so I have to choose, like, man, do we want Oreos? Do we want ice cream? Like, what's it going to be? Because we're not going to finish more than one thing per week unless we're being gross and unhealthy.
You're just not living life correctly.
Yeah, sometimes you got to take PTO and just eat Oreos all day. Like, I understand.
Back to your grocery store analogy. So to me, the grocery store would be if the manager was okay with anyone bringing anything to sell at the grocery store. So there's all the things that you want to see there, the fresh produce, but there's also all this rotten stuff all over the place.
But didn't we already say that we are not considering games that are garbage, trash?
I think that if the manager let anything in, that would be worse. But I think even as it is, that's bad enough.
Just imagine, hey y'all, I got some.
I mean, if you've ever watched Kiesha and I try to choose, like, all right, what are the meals that we're going to cook this week? She's just online, like, looking at stuff. It takes a long time to pick a couple meals, and because the options are endless, and it's not just one grocery store; it's all the grocery stores within driving distance, or Amazon. And if you want to do that, go that route. You can buy stuff online.
Digital.
So yeah, there's way too many options.
I sure love buying my ice cream online. It's the best way to go.
When it comes, it's milk.
It's pre-melted.
So Kyle, sorry, I interrupted you, but would you at least agree that in that analogy, the garbage food is not gonna be at the grocery store, like in our minds? Like,
yeah. If we go back to the original thing, yeah. But I guess I was still making the point that if everything was considered, but yeah. So if everything in there was the best of the
good
best,
food, AAA food,
then it's death by decision. Like even if you pick something and it's delicious, but you don't have much of an appetite, to choose anything to begin with, if everything looks great, is difficult and stressful. So who wins?
I guess death by decision is what we've been talking about this whole time.
Mm-hmm. More or less, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Counterpoint. Would y'all?
What is your problem?
I'm no. Like counter idea.
All right.
Would you rather have the situation where there's too few games or too many games? Like every year there's only like a few. Like you can figure out what too few means for you, but like, would you rather have the scenario where we had too few games to choose from?
In a world where I have the backlog that I have right now, I would rather have too few games.
Imagine you don't have the backlog. Your backlog's all gone.
You have nothing.
Because we live in a world where there's too few games. So there's no such thing as a backlog.
That makes sense. I still think that would be okay because those games would probably be really great. They'd also probably be really expensive, which I'm not a fan of. But they'd probably be really great and they'd be worth my time. And I wouldn't feel like I wouldn't miss, right? I wouldn't be thinking like, man, I wish I had more games to fill my time. I would just keep playing the ones I had until, either I ran out of leisure time in which to do that or I got bored with them.
So I think in order for that to work, like who's to say that all of the few games that exist, all of them are Anthem? It's a AAA game. Everybody thinks it's great. It has a marketing budget, but everything that exists is trash.
They all suck.
Yeah, they all suck. So who's making the choice of this smaller group?
Well, I guess.
So I think if there's more,
well, let's assume.
I guess for Brad's question, it makes sense. You kind of have to make the assumption that
there's a variety.
the ratio of good games to
It'll be a
bad games
balance.
is roughly the same.
It'll be a balance.
Well, at that point, it's
Yeah.
not. Okay, so let me change it and say that they're all good games, but they're all racing games, right?
Okay.
So then it still doesn't fulfill the need of there being variety, even if they're all great.
Well,
Okay, we can make the same argument. The ratio of games you want to play
Exactly.
to the ones you don't.
so too
can still be
few
the same.
games that you would like to play. Like,
then I don't
let's
see a
put it
problem.
he was so angry, hot and bothered. See, all the games gonna be trash. Well, all the games gonna be racing games.
I'm thinking
Well,
about
it's gonna be perfect.
Look, I'm thinking about it as check this out. See, I've been thinking about it as I'm not the only person shopping at the grocery store. But if the grocery store is for me, then they can have one game on the shelf and I'll be fine. So you didn't make that as a point of your analogy that everything was catered for me.
No. My question was literally: would you rather have?
Well,
two?
we're not saying one game. We're saying multiple games. Just fewer than there are. Too few, I guess.
But
well, you know what? This isn't really fair because too few is
subjective.
It implies that it is too few. So I guess if it's too few, then I'm not going to be happy. But if it's a few, then I'll be happy.
The perfect amount.
Sense? Yeah, if it's the perfect amount, then it's not too
and they
few.
say for Kyle, and I'm the main character in them.
Yes.
Then
I would never play those.
Me either. But
Well,
I'd be grateful.
I think that what you said earlier, Steve, is kind of how I feel about it. Like now thinking about it, I think I would prefer a world with too few games where I was clamoring for that next game because every game would be that much more meaningful and impactful to me. And though it would suck because I wouldn't have games to play for like maybe a month or two and I'd be sitting around like, when's the next game going to come? But when the game came, it would be that much better instead of me feeling like, man, I'm missing out on Elden Ring and Deathloop and you name it, and I just feel like I'm in a constant state of like, man, there's not enough game. But at the same time, it's like a good problem, right? To have like there's too many, but I don't know. Like for me, for example, I bring it up all the time, but I'm a UFC fan and they have pay-per-views like once a month.
Yes, you do bring it up all the time.
And as much as I would love there to be more pay-per-views, I think the fact that there's only maybe one a month makes those pay-per-views that much more meaningful, because they're very like well produced, the best fights that could possibly be on the card, you know what I'm saying? And then the fights that happen in between the pay-per-view are like AA games, you know what I'm saying? Like the pay-per-views are like AAA games. And then like the lower end fights are not really for people who aren't like super fans. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it's a good balance. And I think I would prefer that. Like,
I think that's like the fine line between FOMO and like healthy anticipation. Like if something else is coming, I guess the conditions on you knowing it's coming kind of determine.
So here's an idea. Here's a strategy that we could use, right? Basically what it comes down to is you raise your standards for what games you're willing to buy until there are too few games. So for me, I might say, look, I will look at all the rumors for the games coming out in a given year, and I'll say I'll buy one of these games and I have to pick like which one is the most interesting. I have to wait for that game to come out and then I can play it. And then I'll have a second game that I can buy at the end of the year, to fill in like, oh, that game came out. It was really good. I didn't plan ahead for it, but I can get it at the end of the year. So that way you're artificially, raising the standard. You're artificially creating scarcity by saying I can only have 2 games a year.
So it sounds like I have to be an adult gamer. like
hard pass.
Yeah, but I'm saying you have to, you think like an adult gamer instead of thinking like a child and then realizing, oh no, I'm an adult.
Oh no.
But I want to be a child. Like all I want to do, I gave a presentation today and I was sharing about like my background and I was telling them of some of my hobbies and I told them like, oh, I'm into games. And I said, oh, like recently I've been playing Witcher. And then I said, no, I'm not 8 years old, but I have been playing Fortnite. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, like, I feel like that's what it is. Like,
and then your boss was like, can you stay on the call, Brad? I just want to talk.
Like, the meeting has ended. Like, what just happened? Like,
and I guess I wonder how that would work with games you don't buy. I was going to say if once you own a game, you can play it whenever you want. Like you can replay it, you can wait a year and play, you can do what you want, but you only buy 1 or 2 a year. But if for something like Fortnite, I guess you would just say, I want to collect the license of one game every 2 years.
I can only do 1 season a year. Like
for a live action game, for a live service game, it has to be 1 every 2 years. Really, really bring up that standard.
And so when you get into the live service game, do you also have a budget? You would spend
for time,
the money that you would have spent
on V-Bucks?
No, because this isn't about money. This is about your time.
True. All right, fine.
So I mean, if you want to buy every skin, like, good luck.
So I can get that John Wick skin, or no, I want that TIE Fighter glider, son. I want that TIE Fighter glider, son. That's all I want.
That's pretty cool.
It's really legit. And
they knew what they were doing.
They knew exactly what they're doing. I was like, I'm a grown man. I'm over here like, well.
He's giddy over there.
I'm thinking about it. I'm not going to buy it, but we'll see.
Man, season ain't over.
It's like, knowing any moment I could push the button. But I won't push it.
The real answer to our dilemma, let's be honest, guys, is us to be full-time Super Agile Bro podcasters. And then we can play games, watch movies, and anime at the pace that our fans want, which is...
You see, you just made the fatal error. It's the pace our fans want.
No.
I don't care what our fans want.
At the pace that we want, right? We still release once a week, and we just, just pace it out, at whatever pace. And that means our 9 to 5 is just whatever we decide to do on the next episode, That's what I'm saying. Patreon opening up,
I'm telling you, I think that's kind of I think that's a trap though. I see. I mean, obviously people enjoy themselves and they do that, but there's a lot of regret I see about making your hobby into your job and then not having enjoyment anymore because it's just work.
Yeah, I think there's still a balance, right? There's still a balance you need in there. And I think it's just like, if I could make my job to be like, hey, like do the hard things for like 8 to 10 hours a week. And then like, so, hey, we're going to play, I don't know, Saints Row or whatever. I don't know. I'm just throwing a random game out there. Like that game isn't a game that I want to play. That's just my job game. And I can play that at the pace that I need to get it done. And then I can just take any other time. That would be perfect for me.
You just brought up the reason, Steve, why I don't envy streamers is because that's pretty much exactly how their careers begin, is that they play a game forever because they love it, and then it becomes work, and they're at the mercy of their fans and their sponsors. Prisoners. And if they ever stop playing that game, it all dries up.
Well, there is a few streamers who figured out that they can switch games, but it's a lot of work. I mean, first of all, I don't want to be a streamer. I'm sorry. Like, let's just be. I'm not going to defend that because honestly, it's terrible. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's not for me. I don't want to be a public figure. This is more than enough.
Vote for Steve.
Scrutiny. This podcast is more than enough scrutiny for me.
Be careful, man. When we blow up, you're going to have to deal with it.
My main goal is to blow up and act like I don't know nobody.
All right, boys. Well, let's bring it in.
Hugging?
Thanks for joining me on this conversation. Do you have any final thoughts, Kyle? I heard a stutter just now.
Oh, yeah. You said bring it in. I was like, are we hugging? But
yeah, hug it out, bro. Touch my butt.
I'm going to back up then on that one.
Butt touch. That's the way to do it. That's how people greet in like Europe.
Butt touch?
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, I did it all the time when I was there.
They touch butts to each other, or they touch someone else's butt?
Well, that's the most efficient way, obviously.
What?
But no, normally you just pat the butt.
Was your question, do they touch butts to each other or other people's butts? What does that even mean?
Like, do they do like a backwards hug, or do they use their hand?
How would you... So you're saying they hug in the front and then squeeze each other's cheeks? Is that the other option?
No. He's suggesting they back towards each other and they touch butts.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, booty bump.
Okay.
What was the other option? That's
you
what I'm
just
trying to-
grab,
Patting
you
the
just
butt
get
with
a
your hand.
handful of cake.
So you're saying that you hug, basically some form of harassment. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, like you go to either
No,
you booty bump or you
what?
go to prison. I didn't
Butt
know.
touch. If I told you, let's do a hand touch, would that what would you use another part of your body to touch hand? No, you touch hands together. So when I say butt touch, you know what I'm saying? You butt touch the
So
butt.
is,
mean, a lot of
that, would you call
assumptions.
that a butt shake?
No, a butt shake would be you would have to get one cheek in between the other person's cheek so that
Yeah, obviously.
Just aggressively,
You just spread the cheeks and let them fit together like a
then
puzzle.
you
There's a lot of
aggressively twerk.
the mechanics. Just imagine trying to make that work out in public. Like, hello there,
It's
friend.
basically, it's not any worse than like playing drop ball. You're basically just playing drop ball with somebody else's butt.
True, it is a game that people play everywhere. So I mean,
Yeah. So you basically
don't.
you connect butts, preferably with your pants down, so that you
So
can get
you'd
some
have
like
to have,
inter-cheek
like,
action.
Preferably.
you'd have to have like
And then you both squat, like you both lower, and then you both come up, and that's the shake.
so you'd have to wear like super tight yoga pants. You squat,
Spandex.
spread, squat, spread, then insert into each other's cheeks, then shake. Man, that's a lot of
Yeah.
work. I don't like squats.
Yeah, I would struggle. I don't have a butt.
And then
I'm out here like Hank Hill.
Killing it.
Gotta sit on a
Nega
pillow.
butt. You got that nega butt. Like,
oh gosh,
man, yeah, Hank Hill's he set the trend. He set the standard for no butt.
concave.
Well, that was a great tangent. Bradston, do you have anything to add?
The only thing I would add is that I don't think there's too many games that I want to play. I think there's too much games for me to play. That's all I have to say.
Put that on a T-shirt.
I'm really glad to hear you reiterate that stupid sounding sentence.
I only want to play like 3 or 4 games a year, but they're too
He's
much.
like, I'm gonna make this deep sounding comment in the middle of the podcast, and then I'm gonna bring it up again twice.
I'm not trying to bring it up to sound deep. I'm just literally saying that's what
Oh,
I
He just
believe.
doesn't want you to forget.
You asked
don't
me
want-
what my
he just
last
doesn't want-
statement was. I gave you my last statement. If you don't want a butt touch, then get out.
Keep your butt away from
Keep
my
your
butt,
butt-
sir.
I'll go play drop ball in the corner. I don't need you. Anyway,
Well, I'm sure I had a final thought, but
Bye-bye.
it has left me. Play Hollow Knight. That's my final thought. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the Super Agile Bros. We are here for your listening pleasure, once a week. You can find us on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher. Is it Google Podcast as well? Is it one of those?
Yep.
One of those.
Did I miss anything? Any of our platforms?
We everywhere.
Find us at my mom's house eating
Spaghetti.
Pop-Tarts and Capri Sun. Wherever you find us, we'll be there.
USB sticks by mail. We'll be doing that soon.
Oh yeah, definitely no viruses. Put that junk in your work computer so you can listen on the job.
Immediately.
But yeah, thanks for listening, and until next time, have a good one.
Bradston's ghost. Any final remarks?
I will touch your butt.
All right, now we're gonna stop.